My name is Clara, and on the evening of my 32nd birthday, the world felt perfect. Deceptively so. From the patio of our new house on the outskirts of Austin, I watched the Texas sky bleed into shades of orange and purple. String lights twinkled above the sprawling lawn, casting a warm glow on the faces of friends and colleagues. The gentle hum of conversation, punctuated by laughter and the clinking of glasses, was the soundtrack to a life I had built from scratch. This house, with its clean lines and infinity pool that seemed to spill into the horizon, wasn't just a home, it was a monument to sleepless nights, relentless ambition, and the quiet satisfaction of proving everyone wrong. My husband, Marcus, materialized beside me, handing me a glass of champagne. His smile was the anchor in my often turbulent world. "You did it, Clara," he murmured, his eyes sweeping over the scene. "You really did it." He wasn't just talking about the party. He was talking about everything. My tech startup, which had nearly broken me a dozen times, was finally thriving. "We did it," I corrected, leaning my head against his shoulder. "Speaking of which," he said, his eyes sparkling with a secret. "I have something for you." He led me towards a small, velvet-draped table near the house. With a flourish, he pulled back the cloth. It took my breath away. It was a metal sculpture, intricate and modern, forged from polished steel and bronze. It wasn't just an object of beauty, it was our story. The rising curve of the steel mimicked my company's growth chart, from a terrifying flatline to its current soaring peak. Embedded along the curve were small, subtle symbols, a tiny bronze coffee cup for the all-nighters, a miniature circuit board for our first major product, and at the very top, two intertwined figures representing Marcus and me. It was the most thoughtful gift I had ever received, a tangible representation of my journey, a testament to the fact that he saw every struggle, every sacrifice. "Marcus, it's perfect," I whispered, tracing the cool metal with my fingertips. He just squeezed my hand, his love a silent, steady presence. For a moment, standing there, I felt an overwhelming sense of peace. I had the successful career, the beautiful home, the loving husband. It was the picture-perfect life. But as my eyes scanned the crowd for my family, a familiar knot tightened in my stomach. They were late, as usual. Even in this flawless setting, there was one piece that never quite fit, one crack in the otherwise pristine facade of my life. A small cloud on an otherwise clear sky, but a cloud that always threatened a storm. I took a sip of champagne, the bubbles fizzing on my tongue, and pushed the feeling down. Tonight, I told myself, would be different. Tonight, nothing would ruin this. As I waited, the music and laughter around me seemed to fade, replaced by a reel of memories I couldn't shut off. It's funny how the past has a way of showing up uninvited to even the best parties. My relationship with my younger brother, Flynn, wasn't just strained, it was a long, exhausting history of me building things up and him finding new and creative ways to tear them down. I remembered the day my college acceptance letter arrived. I was ecstatic, holding the thick envelope that felt like a ticket to a new world. Flynn, who had just dropped out of a community college course because of creative pressure, had rolled his eyes. "Great," he'd muttered, "now you have another reason to show off." My parents, Richard and Brenda, had rushed to his side. "Be nice, Clara," my mother had said softly, stroking Flynn's hair. "You know he's more sensitive than you." That was the narrative of our childhood. Flynn was the fragile artist, and I was the sturdy, dependable workhorse who didn't need coddling. It was a role I played well. While I was taking out student loans and working 3 jobs to pay my way through school, Flynn was finding himself. That journey of self-discovery, it turned out, was expensive. It started small. A couple $100 for a new guitar pedal. $1,000 for a deposit on a recording studio he never used. Then came the credit card debt he'd racked up on clothes and nights out, which I quietly paid off to stop the collection calls. The grand total, a number I tried not to think about too often, was somewhere north of $15,000. Each time, he'd call with a voice full of charm and broken promises. "This is it, Clara. This is the one that's gonna hit. I'll pay you back double, I swear." I knew he wouldn't. But I paid anyway. Because that's what I was supposed to do. My parents' role in all this was one of quiet, determined enabling. They never gave him large sums of money themselves, their finances were always modest, but they were experts at applying guilt. They saw my success not as something to celebrate, but as a resource for Flynn. Their reasoning was rooted in a single, formative memory. When Flynn was 8, he tried to jump off the shed roof with a bedsheet as a parachute, trying to imitate some cartoon hero. He'd landed badly and shattered his arm. I remembered the panic in my parents' eyes, the frantic rush to the hospital. From that day forward, Flynn was encased in their protective bubble. He was the boy who could get hurt, the one who needed saving. And I, the sensible older sister who had warned him not to jump, was relegated to the role of permanent safety net. Their constant protection hadn't made him safe, it had made him reckless, convinced that no matter how high he jumped, I would always be there to break his fall. Just as I was about to raise my glass for a toast, I saw him. Flynn had slipped in unnoticed, wearing a faded band t-shirt and jeans that looked like they'd been slept in. He wasn't talking to anyone, just standing by the bar with a thunderous expression, nursing a beer. I took a deep breath and began my speech, thanking my friends, my team, and especially Marcus. As I raised my glass, my eyes met Flynn's across the yard. He started moving. He walked deliberately towards the gift table, his movements stiff and angry. He picked up the metal sculpture Marcus had given me. For a horrifying second, I thought he was just going to look at it. Then he turned, his face a mask of pure resentment. He looked me dead in the eye, his voice cutting through the celebratory atmosphere like a shard of glass. "This is what happens when you think your money makes you a queen," he roared. And with a final, contemptuous gesture, he hurled the sculpture. It flew through the air in a gleaming arc, landing with a sickening splash in the middle of the pool. The party died. A collective gasp sucked the air out of the yard. My father, Richard, was the first to move. He rushed to Flynn's side, not with anger, but with concern, wrapping his arms around him. "He's just overwhelmed," my father announced to the stunned crowd, as if that explained everything. My mother, Brenda, looked at me, her eyes pleading, silently begging me not to make a scene, not to ruin the fragile peace she spent her life maintaining. The rest of the party was a blur of forced smiles and awkward goodbyes. As soon as the last guest departed, the facade crumbled. Marcus, his jaw tight with a fury he'd contained all evening, stripped off his shirt and waded into the pool. He retrieved the sculpture, water streaming from its warped and scratched frame. He placed it gently on a towel on the patio table. It was still beautiful, but it was irrevocably damaged. Broken. "I don't care what it cost," Marcus said, his voice dangerously quiet as he dried his hands. "But I cannot stand the way he disrespects you, Clara. And I can't stand that your family lets him. That they encourage it." He looked at me, his eyes searching mine. "This isn't sustainable. We can't live like this." He was right. This wasn't a tantrum. It was a declaration of war. And for the first time, I felt ready to fight back. Later that night, long after Marcus had gone to bed, I sat in the silent glow of my laptop screen. The house was quiet, but my mind was screaming. I pulled up my banking app and stared at the account I'd set up for Flynn years ago, the one I'd ironically nicknamed Flynn's Music Fund. Over $12,000 sat in it, money I'd transferred for studio time, for equipment, for a dream he was never serious about chasing. My finger hovered over the transfer button. A wave of guilt, conditioned from years of being the responsible one, washed over me. I could hear my mother's voice in my head, "He's your brother. He just needs a little help." But then I saw the image of my gift sinking to the bottom of the pool. I saw the smirk on Flynn's face as my father hugged him. The anger returned, cold and clear. I clicked the button. A few seconds later, the balance in his fund read $0. But I wasn't done. I opened my email and found the chain with a local music producer I'd connected Flynn with. I had vouched for him, used my own professional capital to get him a meeting that had resulted in a demo deal, a golden opportunity. I began to type, my fingers flying across the keyboard. "Hi Mark," I wrote. "I'm writing to formally and completely retract my recommendation for Flynn. After a recent and deeply troubling incident, it has become clear that he lacks the professionalism, integrity, and basic respect required for any project demanding commitment. I can no longer associate my name with his. I sincerely apologize for the misjudgment." I hit send without a moment's hesitation. It felt like severing a rope that had been around my neck for 2 decades. I leaned back in my chair, the silence of the house pressing in. I wasn't just taking back my money, I was taking back my life. There was no going back from this. Sunrise brought the first wave of the counterattack. My phone buzzed on the nightstand, a frantic, angry vibration. It was a string of texts from Flynn. "The money is gone. All of it. What did you do? The producer just emailed me. The deal is off. Because of you. You are a vindictive, jealous bitch. You can't stand to see me succeed. Fix this. Now." I'm not kidding, Clara. I read the messages, my coffee turning cold in my hand. There was no apology. No mention of the party. No remorse. Just pure, unadulterated entitlement. I set the phone down without replying. An hour later, my mother called. Her voice was thick with manufactured tears. It was a performance I knew well. "Clara, honey, what have you done?" she began, a soft quiver in her tone. "Your brother is an absolute wreck. He's completely fallen apart. How could you be so cruel to him? You're the strong one, you're supposed to look out for him." I listened, my stomach churning. It was the same old script. My strength was not a quality to be admired, but a resource to be endlessly exploited for his weakness. "He threw my birthday gift into a swimming pool in front of 50 people, Mom," I said, my voice flat and devoid of emotion. "He was just overwhelmed," she insisted. "You know how much pressure he's under. You could have just let it go." "I've been letting it go for 20 years, I said, and hung up. Next came my father. His approach was different. No tears, just a heavy, disappointed authority. "Clara, you need to put that money back," he said, no preamble. "This is not how our family operates. You don't kick your brother when he's down. That's a petty, vengeful thing to do, and I am deeply disappointed in you. Were you disappointed when he publicly humiliated me in my own home?" I shot back. There was a pause. "He's your brother," he said, as if those 3 words were a universal excuse for any and all transgressions. "You fix this." The line went dead. I stood in my kitchen, the morning sun streaming in, and felt utterly alone. They hadn't just taken his side. They had become his willing accomplices. The next day, Flynn escalated his campaign from private harassment to public warfare. I was in a meeting at my office when my assistant buzzed me, her voice tense. "Clara, your brother is in the lobby. He's making a scene." I walked out to find Flynn pacing near the reception desk, his hair unkempt and his eyes wild. Several of my employees were watching from a distance, pretending to be busy. "We need to talk," he said, loud enough for everyone to hear. "Not here, Flynn," I said, my voice low and cold. "Oh, so you're too important to talk to your family now?" he shouted, taking a step closer. "You sit in your glass tower and ruin people's lives and think there are no consequences." Before I could respond, my colleague Grant appeared at my side. He was at the party, he'd seen everything. He put a calm hand on my arm. "I think you need to leave," he said to Flynn, his tone polite but firm. Flynn scoffed, but as Grant subtly nodded towards the building's security guard, the fight seemed to drain out of him. He shot me one last venomous look and stormed out. Grant walked me back to my office. "Your family is a lot," he said, an understatement of epic proportions. "Don't let him get to you in here. This is your place." I was shaken, but his words steadied me. This was my place. A place I had built. A place I would defend. But the worst was yet to come. That evening, Grant sent me a link with a simple message: "You need to see this." It was a TikTok video. Flynn was sitting in his cluttered bedroom, a guitar in his lap, looking directly into the camera with a pained, soulful expression. "Hey guys," he started, his voice soft and broken. "I don't normally do this, but my own sister, the successful tech CEO, is trying to destroy my music career." He went on, weaving a masterful tale of sibling rivalry and jealousy. He claimed I was threatened by his raw, authentic talent, and that I'd used my money and power to sabotage his big break, all because I couldn't stand to see him shine. The video was going viral. I scrolled through the comments, my stomach clenching with each one. Wow. Some people will do anything to stay on top. #family drama. Rich sister is just another hater. Keep your head up, King. Don't let her win. We support you. He wasn't just my brother anymore. He was a character in a story he was writing for the whole world, a story where he was the struggling hero, and I was the heartless, wealthy villain. He had taken our private pain and turned it into public entertainment. Thank you for watching. If you're enjoying this story, please hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and let me know what city you're watching from in the comments. Every comment helps this story reach more people, and I truly appreciate it. Now, back to the story. Flynn, emboldened by his newfound internet fame, doubled down. His next TikTok video ended with a link to a crowdfunding page. The title, "Help Me Fight the Corporate Machine, and My Sister." He was asking for $10,000 to produce his album independently, framing it as a noble battle of art against commerce. A few days later, I was having lunch with Grant when he dropped the real bombshell. He'd heard from a friend of his who worked at the same bank as my parents. "Clara, I don't know how to tell you this," he said, looking uncomfortable. "But your parents just paid off $6,000 of Flynn's credit card debt. They did it last week, right after he made that scene at your office." The burger I was eating turned to ash in my mouth. $6,000. They didn't have that kind of money just lying around. It would have come from their retirement savings, from the nest egg they were supposed to be protecting. They had secretly bailed him out while simultaneously pressuring me to do the same. This wasn't just enabling, it was a conspiracy. They weren't just on his team, they were his primary investors in the business of his own self-destruction. That night, I told Marcus. He listened patiently, his knuckles white as he gripped his fork. When I finished, he put his cutlery down and looked at me, his face etched with a weariness that mirrored my own. "Clara, I love you," he said, his voice strained. "But I can't live like this anymore. This chaos, it's bleeding into our home, into our life. It's affecting me. I will support you no matter what you choose, but you have to choose. You can't keep trying to manage them. You need to make a decision. For us." He was giving me an ultimatum, but it was born of desperation, not anger. He was right. The poison from my family was starting to infect the one healthy relationship I had. I couldn't let that happen. The final confrontation came on a Sunday afternoon. The doorbell rang, and I knew before I even opened it who it would be. My parents, Richard and Brenda, stood on my doorstep, their faces set with a grim, righteous purpose. They walked past me into the living room, declining my offer of a drink. They were here on a mission. "We need to talk about this situation with Flynn," my father began, his tone leaving no room for discussion. "You have gone too far. You've embarrassed this family. You need to call that producer, apologize, and give your brother his money back. He's your family," my mother added, her voice trembling with emotion. "He's hurting, Clara. And you're the only one who can fix it. How can you be so selfish?" She then played her trump card, a piece of family lore I hadn't heard in years. "Don't you remember when you were 10 and you broke Mrs. Henderson's window? Flynn took the blame for you. Family protects each other." The memory was so twisted it was almost laughable. Flynn had taken the blame because I'd promised him my entire allowance for a month. It wasn't an act of noble sacrifice, it was a business transaction. I looked at them, sitting on my couch, in my house, demanding I set myself on fire to keep their favored son warm. And in that moment, something inside me clicked into place. The guilt, the obligation, the years of conditioning, it all just fell away. I sat down opposite them, calm and composed. "No," I said. The word was quiet, but it filled the room. "I will not be fixing this. I will not be giving him any more money. I am done." I looked my father in the eye. "I have given Flynn tens of thousands of dollars. I got him professional opportunities he never earned. In return, he has lied to me, stolen from me, and publicly humiliated me. This is not a family. This is a toxic, one-sided relationship, and my participation in it is over." I turned to my mother. "And you," I said, my voice steady, "by constantly coddling him, by making excuses for him, by choosing his comfort over my well-being, you haven't helped him. You have crippled him. Flynn is a 30-year-old man who acts like a child because you've never demanded he be anything else. His failures are his own, but they were made possible by you." A stunned silence descended upon the room. They had come expecting a fight, or tears, or a reluctant surrender. They were not prepared for a calm, surgical dismantling of their entire worldview. They stared at me as if I were a stranger. Maybe I was. I was no longer the person they thought they could control. They left without another word. The front door clicked shut behind them, and the silence they left was profound. It wasn't an angry silence. It was the quiet of an ending. In the weeks that followed, the news trickled in through the grapevine. Flynn's crowdfunding campaign sputtered out, raising less than $1,000. The internet, as it always does, moved on to the next drama. The music producer, having seen Flynn's online antics, told him never to contact him again. With no money and no prospects, Flynn was forced to get a job, bussing tables at a downtown coffee shop. The phone calls and texts from my parents stopped. The war was over because I had refused to keep fighting. I felt a strange sense of emptiness, but beneath it, for the first time in a long time, there was a flicker of peace. A year can change everything. A year after what my husband and I now refer to as the party, we sold the big house on the hill. It was a beautiful house, but its rooms were full of ghosts. We bought a smaller, cozier place with a sprawling garden and a porch swing, a place that felt like a home, not a statement. I focused on my work, on my marriage, on rebuilding the parts of myself that had been eroded by years of family drama. The quiet was blissful. One day, a letter arrived. It was from Flynn. I recognized his messy scrawl immediately. It was a rambling, 2-page apology of sorts, full of excuses dressed up as reasons. He was sorry for what happened, but I had to understand how hard it was for him to see me have everything so easily. He was trying to get his life together, he said. The letter ended, predictably, with a request for a small loan, just a few $1,000s to help him get a fresh start. I read the letter once, then walked over to the fireplace where Marcus had a small fire going against the evening chill. I folded the pages and dropped them into the flames. I watched as the edges curled, blackened, and turned to ash. A few weeks later, Marcus and I were walking along a beach in Hawaii, a trip we'd promised ourselves we'd take. The sun was warm on my skin, and the sound of the waves was a gentle, constant rhythm. He squeezed my hand. "Happy?" he asked. I looked out at the endless blue horizon. I hadn't spoken to my parents or my brother in over a year. I didn't know if I ever would again. I had learned that some bonds aren't meant to be saved, they're meant to be survived. Protecting my peace had come at a cost, the cost of the family I was born into. But it had also given me the freedom to fully embrace the family I had chosen. "Yes," I said, and for the first time, it felt completely true. I chose my peace over their chaos. Was I wrong to burn that final bridge? Thank you for listening. If you enjoyed this story, please show your support by hitting the like button and subscribing to the channel for more content like this. We'll see you in the next one.